Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with hosts Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please look us up on your favorite podcast app, subscribe, like, and share so that you never miss an episode. If you'd like to further support us, visit patreon.com/speakingout and check out the different rewards. You'll find exclusive rewards if you sign up as a patron of the podcast. Thank you for your support, and let's get into the show. Talking to your children about safety. How to help keep your kids safe. I can't believe we haven't done a full episode on that. Your microphone's hanging down.
Well,
Good Lord, Granny, what's going on over
here? I thought I adjusted it just.
You adjusted it all right.
I thought it was all perfect.
Hanging down by a thread.
I was looking at it and I thought it looked good.
Welcome to this week's podcast. We want to thank our patrons for making this podcast possible. You guys are awesome. I don't know what's in Granny's drink over here. You know, we have Thanksgiving. It looks clear, but
and it is that high octane.
It must be high octane.
It is.
You have her microphone upside down and inside out and going every which way.
Hey, I'm ready for Thanksgiving. I'm thinking of bacon pies and making shredded potatoes. I'm trying a new recipe.
There you go. So we are, we're pre-recording. We're taking the week off for Thanksgiving. And then this obviously is going to post after. But, you know, we did our last episode on how to talk to your kids when there's an abuser in the family. And I was looking back, kind of going through the archives, and I was like, you know, we've highlighted some of the things that we've taught our kids, but never did a full episode on how to talk to your kids.
Right.
So, you know, it's kind of a popular demand, and sometimes we just assume that we, you know, because we talked about it, that we did an episode on it, but that's not the case. So all that to say, we're going to do a full episode on how to talk to your kids about child safety. Now, this is more specific to child sexual abuse. So it doesn't include neglect and physical violence and emotional abuse. And you know, there are so many different kinds of abuse that I think there's a lot of overlap. So
there is a lot of overlap, and maybe at some point we can address some of the others, but right now this is more specific to child sexual abuse.
Yeah. So we want to throw that out there. Like, we're not disregarding other types of abuse, but we specialize in child sexual abuse, and for the sake of this podcast, that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to go through an article that was written on Child Mind Institute. So it's childmind.org. This was written by a psychologist, and her name is Natasha Daniels. The article is titled 10 Ways to Teach Children to Speak Up About Sexual Abuse. I read this article and just thought it was really phenomenal. It's very simple. It's very to the point. And what really caught my attention is what she said in the beginning, and I'm just going to read this paragraph. Well, 2 paragraphs. I'll back up another paragraph. 3 paragraphs. They're short. They're like 2 sentences. She said, "Parents will frequently tell me that they didn't think this could happen to them. That they never leave their children with strangers. That they always keep their children within eyesight." And I have lots to say about that. Right. Obviously, I specialize on abuse in plain sight. Keeping children within your eyesight does not keep them safe. Then she goes on. She says, "Do your children go on play dates? Do they go to daycare or preschool? Do you have friends or family over to your house? Do they play at the neighbor's house? The fact is, you cannot fully prevent the risk of your child being sexually abused." Amen and amen. And then she goes on to say, "The children that I've worked with have come from good neighborhoods and good homes and go to really good schools. I've worked with children who've been sexually abused on play dates, sleepovers, in the classroom, on the playground, on the school bus, in their playroom, and out in their backyard." So point well taken.
It is, yeah. Excuse me. Allergies are kicked here. We often have the misconception that sexual abuse is maybe poverty level children, children who come from homes where, they have all kinds of stuff, other stuff going on.
Where they're disadvantaged. Yeah.
Right. But this psychologist is saying, I live in a good neighborhood with good people. I dealt with good people, meaning I'm thinking, highly educated, children that know right from wrong, children that are taught early on, children that have
good stable homes, good and stable homes, loving homes.
They're not tossed to and fro. And here's where abuse happened. It happened even in their own homes, at sleepovers with their friends, in their own backyard even.
Yeah.
And I think that jolts us awake and really, really is. I have to think of our own home. We would have been considered one of those good homes. We had you kids in church 3 times a week. We were known as a loving family, a together family, a fun family, very well educated family, and look what was going on unknown to us.
Absolutely.
So, right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need to wipe away that notion, the myth that, most abusers are strangers. That's absolutely false. The DOJ, Department of Justice, has statistics that shows, 90% of abusers are well known to the victims. Only 10% are strangers. Like you said,
that's another shocker, I think, to most of us. When we think of the abuser, we think of, and we mention it almost in every podcast, the slimy, kind of hidden, sleazy looking man with the trench coat.
Yeah, that's not who the
behind
majority of
bushes.
abusers are.
No, they're the doctors, the teachers,
Right.
the nurses, the chiropractors, the professionals, the church leader, the school teacher, the Sunday school teacher.
Yeah.
There are trusted people.
Well, and I would break that statistic down a little bit more. Roughly 60% of abusers, of that 90% who are well known to the victims, roughly 60% of those are within the family, so they're family members. It's abuse happening within the home. So, that is a really, really important statistic, because I think a lot of people think, well, once my child is under the roof of my home, they're safe. Not so fast. In fact, they're less safe statistically under their own roof.
Let me just get a little plug in, Jimmy, for what's to come in the first of the year when we change our patron tiers. We actually will be having a tier that for patrons that will deal with this very thing, with the abuser in the home. And what does that dynamic look like? Personally, I think that puts pressure on a majority of wives, since we know that most abusers are men, and it's frightening the burden that this places on a mother, of children, to be completely educated as to how this happens.
Yeah.
So, more to come on that.
Yeah, and that's not, it's not to create fear or to say,
No.
oh my goodness, it's actually quite the opposite. It's to say that we have so much information that's available, and
that wasn't available just 10 years ago, just
right.
a decade ago. Right.
So here's this list. These are 10 things, and I'm just going to go right down through this list because I think it's excellent, and I don't think it needs to be any more complicated than this. I'll say also that this is, this podcast is not putting the responsibility on the shoulders of the kids, saying that it's up to the kids to defend themselves. This is just one more layer
of education
to safeguard against abuse. Absolutely, it's up to the adults to watch out for, to be vigilant, to care for, to nurture, to create boundaries for our children. But we can also educate our children and add one more layer of protection. So, number one, talk about body parts early. This is really important because what happens a lot is that when kids are abused, what investigators found out is that kids couldn't identify what was happening to them because they couldn't even identify their own body parts. They had pet names, and there was so much confusion around what the child was trying to explain that there was nothing that would hold up in court in a lot of these cases.
Right.
So what they learned is that teaching proper anatomical names, we shouldn't shy away from this. Like, we're the ones who make it weird. It's not weird for kids. If you start teaching kids vocabulary from the time they're young, it's not, they're not like giggling like, oh, you said penis, like it's not funny to the kid. It's not weird to the kid. It's a body part. So, we actually did this with our kids. A finger is a finger, a head is a head, an ear is an ear, a penis is a penis, and a vagina is a vagina. We don't have pet names for body parts. We don't have, silly names, wee wee and, all the weird
pee and
right.
I know
all the weird pet names
that you grew up with.
We don't do that
because honestly, those of you who are in my age category, and that's old, real old, but we did not talk about body parts. In fact, you were kind of given a whack across the mouth if you did. And you had those quiet little pet names like pee-pee, and that's what you were taught. And honestly, I didn't know proper body part names until I was in high school, and I researched in an encyclopedia, which might sound weird to people, but we were not taught. We did not have any kind of written literature that we were given. Thankfully, today that's changing.
Well, I mean, it's important
part,
too. It's important too when you go to the doctor. I mean, for kids to be able, because we don't speak on behalf of our kids unless we have to. But we've made it a practice that when the doctor asks our children, "What's wrong? What's going on with you?" we don't cut them off. We don't speak for them. We let our children talk to the doctor and communicate.
Right.
And so our children, they've talked about body parts before. We've had bladder infections, things that were painful, and our children were able to explain exactly what was going on with their body without us speaking on behalf of them. So that's really important. And so she says here in this point one, talk about body parts early. She says, I can't tell you how many young children I've worked with who've called their vagina their bottom. Feeling comfortable using these words, the proper words, and knowing what they mean can help a child talk clearly if something inappropriate has happened. Number two, teach them that some body parts are private. She says, tell your child that their private parts are called private because they're not for everyone to see. Explain that mommy and daddy can see them naked, but people outside of the home should only see them with their clothes on. Now, we also explain... we started explaining from a very young age. While mom and dad can see you naked in certain circumstances, your privacy is still your privacy.
Right.
We can't walk in on you in the bathroom.
Right.
We can't walk in on you in the bathroom. We can't touch your body parts, your private parts.
And I think that's important because it's so confusing to a child when a parent is abusive. Because if you've taught them, well, mom and dad can see you. Mom and dad can help you with your bath. Mom and dad, when they're given that abusive touch, which doesn't always hurt, it's so confusing. Because I think innately a child knows something's wrong, but because daddy did it, it must be okay.
That's right.
So it's really difficult.
I mean, she says here too, explain how the doctor can see them without their clothes because mommy and daddy are there with them and the doctor's checking their body. And again, we tell our kids that, but we also communicate that the doctor can't just at will, tell you to drop your clothes for no good reason. Like, the doctor has to explain what they're doing, and mom and dad will be in the room with you, and we're not going to walk away. I wrote about this with Larry Nasser. Part of the issue was, and I'm not placing any blame on the parents whatsoever. It was not their fault. He was using really sophisticated techniques to abuse in plain sight. But, I explained to our kids, I'm going to see the doctor's hands and fingers anytime that they have to see your privates, and they're going to explain what they're doing and why they need to check. And I'm going to be where I can see, what the hands and fingers of that doctor are doing. Yeah. And, the only time that doctors have asked to see privates of our kids is during a routine annual physical examination. Yes. For the males, they check to make sure that the testicles have dropped. They have to do like a light touch or just a visual inspection. And our doctors are great about explaining to our kids. They really are.
And that's
they're really, really good at communicating.
Doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, and if your doctor doesn't do this, get a new doctor.
Right.
Period. Number 3, teach your child body boundaries. Tell your child matter-of-factly that no one should touch their private parts and that no one should ask them to touch somebody else's private parts. Parents will often forget the second part of this sentence. Somebody who's asking your kid to look at their privates or to touch their privates, or they want to send pictures or whatever it is, like, that's a huge no-no. And your kids need to know that's a boundary that is not okay for somebody to violate, ever.
As I'm thinking about this, it has to be age appropriate also, the language that we use, because the older a child gets, the more questions they'll have, and the more prone they will be to have abuse happen that they are aware of. So we need to teach them, age appropriate language.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, tell your child that body secrets are not okay. This is another thing. If somebody's asking to keep secrets, this secret is between me and you. Body secrets are not okay. We actually expanded this in our family. We don't use the term secrets in our home because secrets are never associated with anything positive that I'm aware of. Surprises, surprises have the intention of a revelation. At some point, I'm going to reveal what it is. There's a surprise birthday party. There's a surprise gender reveal.
Whatever.
Or, whatever. Yeah. Like, those are surprises because the full truth is going to be revealed. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing secret. We want to surprise somebody with that information.
I
so we
love
keep
that you don't use the word secret. And I used that word with your kids. It's probably 3 years ago. And I remember the moment one of them said, "We don't keep secrets in our house." I thought,
and we tell them, like, if anybody...
I said, okay, I didn't know that. And I was talking about a surprise, but I used the word secret. I've been extremely cautious since then not to use the word secret.
And we don't make a big deal about it.
No, but I love how you explained it to them. Yeah. And I love the terminology you use today.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think we need to be more aware of that, of when an adult is keeping secrets about body parts or anything private like that with a child. That's a big no-no. And a child needs to know that.
Yeah. So, we told them from very early on, from the time they were old enough to talk, we said, if anybody, doesn't matter who it is, grandparents, anybody, if they ask you,
they got me.
If they ask you to keep a secret, just come tell us,
Right.
And so they've told on grandparents before, and it's so benign, it's like, grandma asked us to have a secret. Okay, what was the secret? Well, she's going to take us later for popsicles. Okay, we tell our kids, thanks for telling us, go play, have fun.
Right.
Like, we don't make a big deal out of it. So it just gets them in the practice that if somebody tells them a secret, their job is to come tell us
I
about
think
it.
that's wonderful.
And that's it.
I
Like,
do.
it's as simple
I
as
think
that.
that's wonderful. Yes.
Number 5, tell your child that no one should take pictures of their private parts. This one is often missed by parents. There's a whole sick world out there of pedophiles who love to take and trade pictures of naked children online. She says this is an epidemic and it puts your child at risk. Tell your kids that no one should ever take pictures of their private parts. Bingo, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't even need to
Once
expand
a
on
child
that.
reaches a certain age, for some it's 5, for some it's a little bit younger, for some it's a little bit older, there becomes a shyness anyway. I think it's a God-given intuition, so to speak, that our private parts are private to us. And so kids know. But when a trusted adult comes and says, hey, you know, I want to take a really cute picture of you before you put your swimsuit on. It's so confusing to a child if that adult is trusted. If they're not taught this, they'll comply. Why would they not?
Yep.
Because we teach them what? Respect your teachers, respect your doctor, respect your coach, respect Aunt Sally, whoever it is. And this is a ploy that a lot of abusers use.
I actually, while we're on this, I'm really aware of just how I feel about people taking pictures of my kids. And so it's tempting to pull the camera out when the kids are playing their baseball game or when they're playing their soccer game or whatever it is. Very rare is it that we've taken pictures of our kids at sports events.
Right.
And I always have to be really careful. I don't have to be. I am really careful with how I do it. I don't take tons of pictures. I make sure that if I'm getting a shot, I try to get it where it's my kid with no other kids in the background. Like when they grab the ball and they're coming, they're running, and it's just them. Like I'll get a picture of my kid. Other than that, I really resist the temptation to pull the camera out and just start snapping pictures. And I think a lot of people don't even think about that because they're not perverts. But I try to have an awareness.
Well, you're very aware because of our whole life situation.
Yeah.
Most people are not, but
I mean, I don't want people taking pictures of my kids, even if it's fully benign and innocent, and putting pictures of my kids all over their Facebook. I just don't want people to do it. Number 6, teach your child how to get out of scary or uncomfortable situations. This one is, I think, absolutely essential. She said some children are uncomfortable with telling people no, especially older peers or adults. Tell them that it's okay to tell an adult they have to leave if something that feels wrong is happening, and help give them words to get out of uncomfortable situations. I mean, I couldn't amen this enough. We've given our kids scenarios, and we've talked through those scenarios, and we've not done this with abuse, but we've done it with emergencies. Like, I fall down. We've talked about this in other episodes, but we've enacted, not in a dramatic fashion, not in a way that's really bizarre or over the top or it's going to traumatize the kids, but I've laid down and explained to the kids what's going to happen. And by the way, I have a brother who died of a massive heart attack at the age of 42. That's how old I am now. He was my age when he died of a heart attack, and his wife wasn't home. His kids had to figure out what to happen, and his oldest was 15.
Yeah, right.
So, these are real life scenarios. How do you teach your kids to think through emergency situations? It doesn't have to be all things abuse. It can be anything. Just get them in that mindset that if an emergency happens,
what would you do?
My training is going to kick in. So, we taught our kids how to pull a phone out of my pocket. They know that my phone is, if it's not in my hand, it's in my pocket. And so if I go down, I've had them pull it out, and I teach them how to get past the pin. My kids all know my pin, but I teach them how to get past that. Every single phone has an emergency mode
Right.
where you can swipe that up. And it also has, I have my emergency information in there. So I'm allergic to cephalexin. That's in my phone. My blood type is in that emergency contact
Right.
information. You can dial 911 from any cell phone without ever having to unlock that phone. That's a federal mandate.
Didn't know that.
So our kids know how to do that. They've practiced doing that. So those are the things you got to teach.
Critical things. This paragraph I loved, teaching your child how to get out of scary or uncomfortable situations. There were situations in school where my girls were extremely uncomfortable with a teacher. At that point, had I have the education that I have now, I would have told them, get up and leave.
Yeah, get up and get out.
Get up and
Yeah.
leave. And, that teacher would have been called out, what's going on. Instead, they sat and put up with the teacher rubbing their shoulders, looking down their shirts.
Yeah.
Not good. I didn't teach them. They weren't prepared. I didn't know how to prepare them. There was a lady at church that I call it kidnapped you kids, but she would pick certain ones of you kids and insist on taking you home with her. And I would say no, and she would insist on getting you kids one at a time in her car and taking her. I should have said, you kick, holler, scream, whatever. If you do feel uncomfortable going, which you kids, the majority of you did, and say, no, I'm not going. No is a powerful word. She would have backed off and stopped, but didn't know how to do that. So now, we're being told, hey, abuse is real. Yeah, it happens by church people too. This lady, what did she want to do with you kids in her home alone? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it couldn't have been that great, or she'd invited us as a family to have a
that
sandwich
was
with
very
her.
bizarre. She never did anything inappropriate. She was a strange woman.
A strange woman.
But-
Very strange.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I was one of the ones that got
yes, you
kidnapped
were.
and taken.
I know.
We didn't think anything about it. We didn't like it, but we were like, oh, mom and dad must have said that it was okay.
And we never did. Yeah, I know, never.
So weird.
Yeah, it's important, if you're at a mall, in a bathroom, using a restroom, and somebody
Anywhere, yeah.
approaches you, just and it's that uncomfortable stare or push the door open or whatever. No, teach
Yeah.
a child how to leave, scream, holler, whatever you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, we've taught our kids too to say what's on their mind, and if they don't like somebody, we've given them permission to say, I don't like you. You're making me uncomfortable. I mean,
That's
there is
important.
nothing wrong with that.
That's great. That is great.
We got to quit worrying about
Right.
you
Hurting feelings.
yeah, being so politically correct that
Right.
that's not polite. Well, it's not polite to rub shoulders of a kid and stare
Right.
down their shirt.
Right.
That's not polite.
No.
So yeah, I mean, our
Exactly.
kids. We talk about different
I
scenarios.
often
and it's
wonder
so
with this
important.
teacher, who was later on dismissed, by the way, what would have happened if the girls that knew this was going on had looked up at him and said in front of everyone,
Yeah, in front of the class.
yeah,
Yeah,
what do
embarrass
you
them.
think you're doing? Back off and get away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Or that gym teacher that we know about. What if every girl, individually and collectively, called him out every time
Mm-hmm.
he did that? I am sure at some point he would have thought, whoa, can't do this
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Number 7, have a code word for your
love
children can
this.
use when they feel unsafe or want to be picked up. That's an important one too. She says as children get a little bit older, you can give them a code word that they can use when they're feeling unsafe.
Right.
I think about the 911 call. The lady who ordered pizza over 911 and the operator he was like, I think you have the wrong number. And she said, no, you're not understanding. And he goes, oh, I got you now. And so he kept using, like, he switched to the code language and
Right.
and saved her life. He was able to
Exactly
get
right.
police there.
Yes.
And on the
Yeah.
dispatch he told police, cut your lights and sirens, she's under distress.
Yeah.
And he has a weapon.
Yep.
So that was like textbook common sense. This guy just, the 911 operator just went above and beyond and figured out
That was
the code
awesome.
language.
Yeah.
We're going to do a later episode on the TikTok, the sign language that
Oh, yeah.
that's a
Right,
code
yeah.
that kids
Okay.
are using now, and we want to teach you guys what that is if you're not aware of it, because there was a kid that was just kidnapped,
Right.
and she was in the back of the car and she did the signal.
Yes. Yep.
Which is a legitimate. There's an organization that came up with this signal, and they wanted to find one that didn't. It's not a real sign language, American Sign Language signal. So they wanted to create something that was a fictitious signal,
but
it could be a
understood.
universal.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
under distress. So code words are really important. Number 8, tell your children that they will never be in trouble if they tell you a body secret. Again, really important. This is as big of a deal as you make it. All of these things are. So, they should never feel like they're in trouble if somebody does something to them, if somebody takes pictures of them, if somebody touches them inappropriately, if somebody does something that makes them
Right.
uncomfortable. You shouldn't explode and be like, oh, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to,
Right.
because that will shut your child down and make your child feel like they're the ones who are in trouble or got someone else in trouble. So respond very calmly, and your
There
child
was
doesn't have to know.
one incident that I can recall with your dad, where he was on my computer in my home office, and one of your sisters opened the door to ask him a question, and on the screen was this horrid porn. She came to me. She was 12 years old. She didn't know what to do. First, she talked to one of your brothers, actually. Didn't know what to do. He advised her to talk to me. And then I talked to your dad. Of course, he fast talked his way out of it. Said, and I fell for it, which, in looking back, I can't believe I was so naive. He was preparing for a sermon, by the way, Focus on the Family series. And he was going to be teaching about porn, and so he was viewing porn to see what it was all about. Well,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I fell for that.
Yeah.
But I was so happy to know that a child would come to me. That meant so much to me because she cherished your dad, and it was hard on her to say that, but she said it out of fear. She was worried that he might be doing something bad or wrong. But children need to be taught you are no way, shape, or form going to ever get into trouble.
Yeah, you're not in trouble for telling us that. I mean,
no, not at all.
in fact, commend them for
Yeah.
telling you.
Yes. Yeah.
Number 9, tell your child that a body touch might tickle or feel good. She says many parents and books talk about good touch and bad touch, but this can be confusing because often these touches do not hurt or feel bad. She said, I prefer the term secret touch as it is more accurate depiction of what might happen. Great point. When they hear bad touch to a child, and children are incredibly concrete thinkers. They're very literal, very concrete. So to them, bad is always associated with
Pain, hurt. Yep.
Right. So let them know that there's good touch and secret touch.
Right.
And we don't do body secrets.
Right.
So,
exactly right.
Yeah, teach them that certain body touches might feel good. If somebody's holding you on the ground and tickling you, that might feel good, but it's highly inappropriate, and it's just such confusing signals, and kids need to know.
It's so hard for kids. It just it frustrates me so much what these abusers do to children. Just really does.
And the last point, and I think this is really, really important, tell your child that these rules apply even with people they know and even with with another child. So, they have friends over. It's not okay for friends to put your kid in their lap or to hold them down and tickle them and to act all gross and
or
weird.
To walk in the bathroom when they're taking a bath.
Right.
Which
pull their cell phone out and take pictures to,
Right.
the same rules apply equally to everybody, regardless of
Right.
age.
I think that can't be stressed enough because, on the one hand, we teach kids to respect those who are older than us, respect our visitors, respect. And it gets really confusing when a perpetrator, an abuser, does something quickly, and
Yeah.
most often it's quick. It's a flash, boop,
Yep.
a quick picture, or a quick touch, a quick feel under the a blouse, to
Yep.
where a child isn't really sure, like, did that
What
happen?
just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that
Yeah.
happen? Should I tell mommy or should I tell daddy?
Yeah.
It's hard. So I think
Well, that brings up another good point. If a kid is unsure, they should
they
should be trained to
right.
talk to you. If they don't know what happened and they don't know how to process it or make sense of it, even if it seems something that's just silly, that's fine. Come talk to
That
us.
communication between parent and child is so important. Keep that open.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, that wraps it up. I think we could talk a lot more about this, but
This
I
is
think
hard stuff, and there's no cut and dry lines. It's not, a black and white. Every child is a little bit different, understands this a little bit on a different level.
yeah,
Circumstances certainly come up, though, in children's lives where this applies.
yeah. But these are tangible things,
Right.
and they're not, they're not super complex, and it's getting your kids. It's more for us. It's more about getting your kids in the habit of communicating, and knowing what boundaries look like and how to describe and prescribe their own boundaries,
Right.
and how to help them with those boundaries. It's about having this open dialogue. It's not like you have this checklist of 10 things you go right down through.
No.
Bam, bam, bam. I'm going to sit down, and in 10 minutes, I'm going to tell them these 10 things, and then my job is done as a parent.
It's
It doesn't work
important
that way.
to tell children that they are precious and they are special, and that every part of them is precious and special, and that nobody has the right to go beyond the boundaries that have been set, and
Yeah.
that boundaries are healthy. I was never taught that. Thank God I was never abused, because I would have been one, I'm sure, who would have submitted. I was never taught it was good and healthy to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Never taught anything about that. And as children, what I was taught is you respect your elders no matter what. No matter what.
Yep.
And, I did.
Yeah.
But these are such helpful things.
Yep. They are. So we hope you find this helpful, and as always, you can comment and let us know what works for you, what doesn't work.
Right.
How do you get your kids to talk? How do you keep them safe?
We love to hear from you. I know many of
Absolutely.
you have had experiences. Share them with us. Give a comment following the video. We
Yep.
would love that. Please.
For sure.
Yeah.
And as always, thank you for tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you next round.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode. A special thank you to our patrons who make this podcast possible. Please help us get the word out by searching for the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to hit subscribe and rate the show. Please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron, and check out the rewards our patrons receive.